You could just
look at the camera?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you could just please say your name and what you feel like you're representing here in Occupy D.C.
Okay. My name is Pat Farnach. It's Farnach, and I'm here mostly because I'm pretty upset with how easily influenced the government is by private interests over public interests, and so there are lots of different things you can do to change that. That's pretty much why I'm here.
Okay, so my basically second question, I guess, is obviously you said you've seen what's going on in the Arab Spring in the Middle East. So how do you feel like this relates what you're trying to do here?
The Arab Spring?
How do you feel like the Arab Spring maybe gave the idea to people in the United States to, occupy and try and, protest and reform the government?
Yeah, I don't know how much the actual Occupy element of something like Tahrir Square influenced this, but I do think the spirit of revolution and seeing that the whole world, or at least a section of the world, was in turmoil, and then I think it kind of made us think about how things are operating here and how we can sort of change that.
Right.
I know the Arab Spring also influenced the Indignados in Spain, and Spain was occupying their main square for months, I think. So then I think that also kind of inspired this. So I think indirectly both of those movements, the Arab Spring and then the Indignados in Spain, I think those influenced this to some degree. I'm not sure how much though.
Okay, so you kind of touched on this a little bit already, but why do you feel like Occupy is being organized, and what are you trying to reform? Already touched on it a little bit, but you could just touch on it a little bit more.
Why is it being organized?
Why do you feel like Occupy is being, very basic question, why do you feel like it's being organized, and what do you feel like you're trying to reform?
So why are we here?
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
I think there's a collective sense that the government's not really working for the people anymore, and I think that's been growing and growing and growing, and it's just become so apparent that people can't ignore it anymore. That's why people are out here.
Okay, so what parts of the government do you feel like are corrupt?
It's hard to say that the government's corrupt. I think it's part of a larger system,
right,
where there are private interests that are outside of the government that are influencing people inside of the government. So, yeah, if we're going to talk about corruption, though, I think it happens to some extent in any branch of the government.
Right.
You kind of see hints of it in the Supreme Court with Supreme Court justices that don't recuse themselves when they clearly have interest in the outcome of the case. So I think that's something. The White House, obviously, campaign donations are huge. Obama had massive grassroots support and donations for his campaign, but he also had massive donations from Wall Street. So there's that too, and then obviously in donations in Congress for congressional races, that happens. Lobbyists, on the private side of things, there's lots of issues.